Hello, viewer. -12. We bid you greetings from inside your television or internet screen. We are here today to tell you about Derek and Duncan's dandruff. We are here today to tell you about Derek and Duncan's duck dandruff delivery department. Wait, there's another word in there? Why would... Derek and Duncan's delirious dandruff... No, seriously, why do the ducks have to be delirious? Do they produce more dandruff that way? Derek and Duncan's delirious duck dandruff delivery service. No, department. I am done. You think you're being clever with all your de-alliterations, don't you, you dandruff-delivering d...
Why would anyone want duck dandruff anyway? What is wrong with you people?
Thank you to Derek and Duncan's Delirious Duck Dandruff Delivery Department for being today's fake sponsor. If you want to see an animated version of today's advertisement, then please head over to Sam Cybichowski's YouTube channel at Sam Cyb Stories, link in the description. And now, on to the show. Greetings, gentle listener, and welcome to another episode of Paul M. Bradley's Psychic Cafe. You know, I've been thinking, sometimes in life things take a while to really appreciate. I'm talking fine wine, I'm talking classical music, I'm talking poetry, and this podcast is no exception. Yes, after a slightly longer break than I would have preferred, we are back with another episode, and I am delighted to reintroduce to the show Mr. Sam Cybichowski, animator, voice actor, writer. His beard glows like an effervescent flame in the night. I have seen it with my own eyes. In fact, you may remember from the last podcast, he sang a song about how he's refused to leave the cafe and has been camping on the floor ever since, and yes, that is absolutely true. I oftentimes wake up and find his glowing beard of effervescent brightness lighting it up. People think the cafe's still open. It's not. It's irritating in a way, but I wouldn't be the same without it. And I'm delighted to welcome him back. We'll be talking about the phenomenon of aphantasia in visualizations of the brain, the importance of dreams, the difference in cognitive development and how we perceive the world. We'll be referencing the works of Will Storr in his book, The Science of Storytelling, and generally playing across the entire rolling field of thought that is the way that our brains develop. If that has not whetted your appetite, then by God, I don't know what will. You are insatiable. Your hunger for information will not be contained. But for those who do wish to proceed, here we go with another episode. I have been doing about 90 takes of this intro, but I think this is the one I'm going to go with. So here we are. Please welcome Mr. Sam Cybichowski. God, I'm driving myself mad with these fucking things.
It's time.
Alright, Sam, it's nice to have you on the show. So, why are you still here? Is the question I'm just opening with.
The floor down here on your cafe is very clean.
Right, yeah, okay. I'm just saying, it's very clean because you seem to... You scrabble across it every day. I'm just saying, it is rather unnerving to the other customers that you're continually camping in the corner. I mean, look at that. You got a small tent down there. You've got numerous... Well, I don't even know what that is. Or that, but that looks like an effigy of some kind. What's that? What is that?
I would say that my living here, my eating your food, my effigy, my scrabbling across the floor, yes. I would say I am one of the selling points of this cafe.
See, yeah, now you say that. You say, camping. I would call it squatting, in fact. But a kind of very bizarre squatting where the original owner is still living there and he's just sort of a bit embarrassed at this point. I mean,
Well, you see, that's I think where we differ. You call it squatting. I call it what you called it before, scrabbling. Across the floor.
Scrabbling.
Yeah.
That's the actual name that you're giving to it. You're scrabbling.
Yes.
Okay. Right.
This is my life now, and you will deal with it, Dad. Don't judge me, Dad.
Okay, well, while we've got you here, in between your numerous mad dashes, like a sort of rat up a drain pipe off to the food section and off to the drink section, sort of scrabbling by you, trying to eke out an existence in the wilderness of
I'm the Bigfoot of this cafe. People come here just to photograph my majesty. By climbing the walls and
so this is a bit of a weird one for me because I am not the director of this podcast. I was going to be the director. I was like, hey, weird man, while you're still here on the floor, can you just can we do something about like lockdown and that? But then you were like, no, I've got a better idea, and then you didn't tell me what it was. So
I told you that I wanted to save the particular the nature of the topic for this episode, but for the sake of pitching it, I would call it what does your imagination look like?
Right.
And I think that was I think that was where we got him, the Mr. Paul M. Bradley. That's where we got him hook, line, and sinker. He couldn't resist.
No, you're making it sound like I'm the cryptid. Okay.
Aren't we all?
We're all cryptids deep down. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Cybichowski. We've been friends.
Cybichowski.
We've been friends for nearly 2 decades now, and I still am a bit iffy on how to pronounce your name.
Yeah, everyone is. Yes.
So go on then.
So, what does your imagination look like? I believe science has been acutely aware since the 1880s of the fact that different people's imaginations look, feel, and sound very different. Not everyone's is the same. But that fact hasn't really entered into mainstream knowledge or received much attention or scientific study until as recently as 2015, when I believe a Professor Adam Zeman coined the term aphantasia.
Ooh.
To describe people. Yes, aphantasia. It describes people that are incapable of conjuring mental imagery.
I've heard of that. Yes.
Yes. Their imaginations just aren't visual at all. But there are different levels of it. Some people's imaginations look like very dim. Or like crude versions of what they want to imagine. Some people get like full motion HD videos. Some people can only conjure something for a couple of seconds at a time, like flashes of stuff. Some people, this is still a very, very new study. I found out about it because a lot of creative people that I follow the work of online have come forward to talk about their experiences with it, how they have gone through their entire lives thinking that any reference to visual imagination that they heard was just a figure of speech, until they came across this thing and realized that no, actually their minds work differently to other people's.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the exact definition that Professor Zeman gave aphantasia was not being able to voluntarily conjure mental imagery, because in his experience he observed that most people with aphantasia still dream visually. But from some people that I follow, that's not the case. I think someone called Bob on a podcast called Distractable, I listen to sometimes. He's talked about how even in dreams, he doesn't really see anything. His dreams just feel like a reality where what should be occupying the visual space is it just manifests differently somehow, just in an abstract way that is hard to explain. And other people that I follow, like Carlos Luna, he's a dungeon master. I don't know much of his work, but I've seen a few interviews of him and things he's done on my favorite Dungeons and Dragons podcast show, rather, Dimension 20. He's talked about how people ask him, how does he, as a dungeon master, create worlds and stuff when he can't see it visually? And he describes it as still being able to recall descriptions of visuals from real life and being able to use that in place of imagining visuals. Same thing with an artist and animator I follow called Ross O'Donovan. Yeah, lots of incredibly creative people who surprisingly don't have visual imaginations. And this study is so new that people are discussing it and coming forward to claim that there are other sorts of conditions in the same vein as aphantasia, but for different sensory sort of things. Like if someone is described as having no filter when they speak, it might be that they don't have an inner monologue. That their thoughts don't manifest as their own voice speaking their thoughts to them. So their thoughts manifest in some other abstract way, and maybe they have no filter because they need to speak aloud to translate their thoughts into words.
Now that's really interesting, because I was having this sort of discussion with my dad after he listened to the podcast with Chris, meditation teacher. That's not his last name, Chris, meditation teacher, but because I was describing how I'm trying to get the thoughts under control and that, and he said, I don't have that. He doesn't seem to, like he said, I can think when I have something to think about, and then it comes up, but I can very easily think of nothing. Which, I find that whole topic very interesting, because I'm someone who has an abundance of visualization and inner monologue stuff. I can picture something really vividly in my mind. To the point where a meditation exercise I do / inspiration gaining thing. It's part of my it's actually part of my occult hobby? No. It's I don't know what other word. Occult practice.
I think we need a more positive word for obsession.
right, yeah, no, I'll get on to that. One of the practices is to walk around in kind of pure like imagination or pure what Alan Moore in Promethea, which is by far his best book, called the Immateria, which is essentially it's like the realm of imagination where the thought patterns of the universe kind of lie, if you will. But I mean, I'm able to like visualize myself walking around like weird environments to the point where I literally, you know, if I'm touching a table or something, I really do feel the table underneath, you know, in my hands, and I'm able to like hear exactly what other people are saying to me and remember it clearly. I have extremely vivid dreams, and I have a lot of inner monologue. And I mean, this is the thing. I mean, I didn't have, because I can, for instance, when I was a child, I would be playing pretend with friends, and I would see the things that we were imagining. Obviously, you don't see it with like, it's not a hallucination.
Yeah,
it's like seeing without seeing, in a way. You can just sort of overlay it onto reality, and you feel its presence.
Yeah,
and it's a fascinating thing, but that ability sort of withered over the years. But when I began meditation, it actually expanded, and I was able to do it again, and I was able to do all that stuff again. So it's interesting to see this kind of like the different ways that minds can process things and can sort of expand and contract and that. What's your sort of experience with it? Are you a good visualizer?
Okay, so my researching all of this has made me very conscious of the fact that my imagination, I can visualize things, but it's like it's not full motion HD video. It's quick flashes of scribbly shapes and lines and things that compose an image or animated sequence of what I'm trying to conjure in my head. Almost like frantically shining a torch over a dark room and only being able to make out the surfaces that reflect back at you, if you know what I mean.
I think so, yes.
Yes. And I don't have much of a sense of touch in my imagination. But other things like sound and inner monologue, I think I have a fairly average amount. But visualization, I like the way my dad described it when I was explaining it to him a little while ago, and he was trying to understand it. The word he used was like a monopainting.
A monopainting? You mean a painting in like monochrome colours?
Sort of. Like a painting in block colours, I guess.
Oh, right.
Yeah. I like that way of describing it. And I've been thinking about how I imagine not just things like when I'm reading a book and I try to imagine what's going on, but how I perceive my memories as well. There's one memory that I've been thinking about a lot recently, where when I was a very young kid, before I met you, I think, like I was
very young,
7 or 8 or 9. Yeah. before I became the goody two shoes bookworm that I would eventually become in secondary school, I was doing very badly in school back in primary school, and it was solely because I couldn't control my daydreams. I would zone out for long periods of time, and I couldn't control when my attention would shut off and when I would go in and out. I have a memory of a math lesson, and I don't remember what I was daydreaming about at the time, but I remember snapping back to reality and noticing that all the kids around me were writing on these little mini whiteboards that had been handed out, and they were writing down answers to this question the teacher had posed on the board. And I was panicking because I had daydreamed through the explanation of what
we're supposed to do.
Going. Yeah, I was trying to glean any sort of context out of anything that was happening, and eventually I thought, okay, screw it. Maybe an answer will be better than no answer at all. This is probably going to be wrong, but I'll just write down the first thing I can think of. So I wrote down something, and I braced myself to be yelled at. I didn't brace myself hard enough because there was shrieking, and the teacher snatched my board away from me and stormed over into the class next door to humiliate me in front of them as well. And then she came back into the class and shouted at me to stop crying, and then the class...
Sorry, you went to...
Name of school redacted.
Didn't you?
I did. I don't remember any
I think I might know which
teachers' names there.
I think I know which teacher you were talking about, actually, because I had that happen.
Okay.
Yeah, because she was going. She was. Well, I won't give away personal information, but yeah, that was. I remember that one. I remember that teacher.
Yes, my memory of my childhood is fuzzy on a good day, but I don't remember any names. But that memory is seared in. I like went home after that happened. I told my mum how I got shouted at for getting an answer wrong in maths, and I was legitimately scared and freaked out, and my mum complained and got me moved to a different math class, and everything was fine from then on. But I still have that memory burned in.
Do you know what? I was praying at that time when you were describing the scene. I genuinely thought it might be that you held up, you just thought, I'll give a answer, and you held it up, and you were the only one who was right in the whole class. By pure coincidence.
That would be a good story, but it probably wouldn't have been burned into my memory in the same way.
Yeah, no, that's... And sorry.
I think that was probably why I turned into such a goody two-shoes bookworm in secondary school, because as soon as I got control of my daydreaming, I'm like, okay, no one's gonna think I'm dumb, or no one's gonna mistake me for a bad kid anymore.
I had
but even then, by the time I finished my school days, I was so sick and tired of teachers that were just calibrated for dealing with the deliberately rebellious kids, that they treated every child as guilty until proven innocent.
Yeah, the education system's a pile of crap. It's just, yeah, because there's no. I find that as well. There isn't much of a allowance made for the standard. The very fact that literally it's still developing brains. You're dealing with brains that are actually not finished, and yet they're treated as if they're just tiny adults with who are just dumber. I find that it's just. I mean, I remember actually. Do you know what? I've had a very similar story, except maybe sort of on the other end because I was the one doing the shouting. This was way back, like in year 2, which was I must have been 5, no, well 6, and I was very daydream prone. I actually don't remember. I barely remember anything I don't remember any period when I was really paying much attention in class. And apparently there is another story of like one of the teacher saying, "All right, we're going to do maths now," and then me just leaning back in my chair like a tiny James Dean and being like, you know what? Actually, I don't think I want to do maths.
That reminds me. My mum has a story she tells me sometimes of how back in primary school there was one lesson where we were drawing or something, and the fire bell went, and everybody else got up, packed their bags, and left in an orderly file, and I genuinely did not hear any of it. I was too busy finishing my drawing.
I don't care if my flesh singes off. I will get this tree. Damn it! But yeah, so I was completely wrapped up in my own head during this time, and there was that standard point when they were just like discussing, oh, what are we going to be playing on the playground, and then one person I think said, well, we'll play something like, I don't know, Power Rangers or something, and then I, for reasons I couldn't quite understand, stood up. This is during a lesson, stood bolt upright in my chair and started screaming, "Power Rangers go!" Like, just absolute, like, in the moment. And the teacher was just like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, I don't know. And I just sat back down. And then 10 minutes later, I did it again. I don't know why. And my parents got called in. And I don't know what happened. But
I hope you don't take offense when I say that sounds very poor.
Oh, honestly, I still do that. Like I will have like sometimes I'll be in my room, and if you were to just have a camera fixed on me, it would look like I would just be sitting there just like completely normally, and then I'd be like, yeah, but be honest, you don't really believe that, do you? I mean, when you think about it, if you dive down into the etymology of the argument, it's not really... And then I just sit back down normally.
That's just talking to yourself. I thought everybody did that.
Yeah, I don't know, but I mean, sometimes that happens, and Dad's like, "What?" I was like, "Oh, sorry." And the way I describe it is sort of a pithy comment. I just say, "I'm time traveling," because usually I'm sliding into like imaginings of like the future or how I would have handled a situation in the past, and back and forth like that. Which, I mean, I find, again, I suppose this is like where we're sort of heading with this one, because the mind is extremely, I mean, whether or not it produces like the powerful sort of, semi hallucinations of visualization and that, or whether it's more in the normal not the normal, you know what I mean, what was it called again? Anesthesia?
Aphantasia.
Aphantasia. Whether it's more or whether it's more.
Anesthesia is the stuff they drug you with to sedate you.
No, I thought that was that's an anaesthetist. Anesthetic. That's anesthetic. I thought anesthesia. Anesthesia is that the name of a Russian? Basically, we're getting our names confused.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, but whether you're more in the Aphantasia sort of school, if you will, the mind is incredibly sort of powerful at enveloping you in different moments. I don't know. Not sure where I'm going.
you and I are both big fans of the book The Science of Storytelling by Will Storr.
I love that book. Yeah.
Which
recommend
it. For people at home is a book about the history and function and all the whys and hows of why we tell stories the way we do, explained through the lens of neuroscience. And I think one of my biggest takeaways from that book is that when we dream, our brain builds a simulation, hallucination of a false reality in our heads that feels very real. But what we think of as reality actually works on the same simulation program, but just with the aid of our sensory organs to try and more accurately recreate reality so that we can interact with it. And that's why our perception of reality isn't perfect, because our sensory organs aren't going to be perfect, and they're only going to be developed to perceive the things that are evolutionarily relevant for us to perceive.
Yeah, I remember at one point when I heard that there were like, because when I saw that, when someone taught me how a remote control works on a television, it has like an invisible light ray which shoots into the telly and that. Then I was changing the channel. I remember I was fairly young when I was thinking this, but I just thought, hang on a minute. So that's a light beam I can't see, and that's how all other things work. That's how, like, all other sort of radio signals and infrared and all the pieces of the light spectrum that we can't actually perceive. That's all going on right in front of us, and we can't see it. What would reality look like if we actually could see all that? And
oh yes,
I just thought, it would be kind of a. I was reminded when I was a wee lad, my grandparents got me a colouring book, and it was this one picture. I think it was a unicorn, and again, I think this is very just typical of how my brain works. It was just a scribble, right? It was just a massive scribble. My granddad looked over me and said, "Oh, you're supposed to colour in the lines, And I said, "But I did, Granddad. But then this blue line came in and started going along like that. But then the red line started going after the blue line. And the blue line went over and crossed over with the green line. And the green line and the blue line teamed up against the red line. And I was just describing how this scribble mapped out in perfect detail of exactly all the different alliances and that." And I was reminded of that. That picture, and I thought, would reality look like that scribble if we really could perceive the entire light spectrum, or would it look like a kind of psychedelic fractal?
Yeah. Either way, it's kind of a good thing that we can't see unfiltered reality, because we would not know what is going on. Also. Side note, I wish the audience could see your hands flapping about as you explain things. Also, side note, I just remembered the point of the story I was telling about that memory I had where I was yelled at by the math teacher.
Mm-hmm.
The point of that story was because when I remember that memory, the way that memory manifests in my brain is I see the visual of this classroom with colourful walls, like boards full of posters and stuff. I see a classroom full of faceless people, because I don't remember the details of what they looked like and things like that. But I remember almost like these blobs of shapes and splashes of color that represent that come together to represent a classroom full of people. And I remember almost like this spatial map of the immediate area as well. I remember the rectangular classroom. I remember if you walked out the door, you'd walk into a corridor, and opposite that classroom would be a nearly identical classroom. If you turned right down the corridor, you'd reach a junction. If you turned right again, you'd see the bags and coat hanging up area. If you turned left, you'd go way back into the rest of the school, which I don't remember the layout of that, but that small area, that spatial map, is imprinted along with that memory. And the third component of that memory, the biggest and most overwhelming, is the feeling of shame and fear and anger at myself of why is this happening again? Why can't I control myself? Why can't I control when I stop paying attention? All the other kids seem to be able to control themselves. All the adults think I should be able to control myself. They don't believe me when I say I can't control myself. Why is this happening? Yada yada yada. Those are the. I think it's interesting that that there are like components of a memory like that. That I think the emotion is the thing that makes the event stick in my mind, but the other details, like the visuals and the map of the immediate area, are like annotations, like post-it notes that my mind has stuck onto the memory of that emotion.
Yeah, I think that's the core of it, because no matter what, you always remember the emotional root of the memory before anything else.
Yeah.
I mean, of my being shouted at by probably that same teacher memory, I mean, I think I have two, but mainly the main one, I can really see it quite clearly. I remember exactly what she looked like. I think I know what she was wearing. I see the classroom. I know exactly how the tables and chairs were out in the classroom. If I concentrate, I think I can remember who else was there. But their memories aren't that relevant. My brain just kind of chunked that. And the core emotion for me was confusion, because I was like, all right, I mean, I only asked why we weren't reading during reading time. I don't get what was going on there. It was more confusion than anything else. But yeah, I know what you mean. That's it's interesting how the mind almost works backwards to, say, cinema. Cinema works, you put up images and sounds and all that, and from that projection you see you get an emotion, whereas with memories, you start with the emotion, and from there the images get built up. I think that's probably why I've gotten more and more into like surrealism, because I just love the way that you actually, the art starts with the emotion and works the way that the brain would, which I think is why Eraserhead is kind of one of the movies I've become obsessed with very recently.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, see, this is another thing I mean about obsessions. It's genuinely, it's a real problem actually, because I've ever since I was a child, there'll be like, I'll have these phases, these very distinct phases where I'll just be like, and this is what I'm going to talk about endlessly and on forever.
Yeah. I had a phase when I was a kid of like, I would talk about something, I would explain something, and then if I was interrupted, I would go back to the very beginning.
Yeah, honestly, that's just a thing I still do. That's the thing.
Yeah.
I still do. If I've got a point to make, I will follow people upstairs. I will talk through doors. I will do whatever it is, because it is actually... I have a dictaphone by my bed, because sometimes the thoughts are just so much that I just have to be like, all right, I've just got to say this so I can actually sleep at night.
Yeah.
It's horrific in a way, but in a way also quite liberating. Anyway, I'll just find a way so I can tie it back up.
Okay.
Sorry,
what? Are we running out of time already?
No. It's been an hour, but...
An hour? Really?
I think so. Hold on a minute. Let me just check.
Oh, God, it has.
It has actually been an hour.
That went really quickly.
Yeah, well, it's 44 minutes in terms of recording for me, but yeah. It's quite interesting to compare the way that the different minds sort of operate on those levels, and kind of the reason another reason I like surrealism is it kind of can bridge the gap between different minds. I mean, like Eraserhead, I think is a fantastic example, because depending on your, like, everyone will have their own intellectual understanding of what the film means. I have mine. David Lynch has his, and David Lynch is very, very clear that, you know, whatever your personal interpretation is up to you. But no one can dispute the vibe.
That needs to be on a t-shirt.
No one can dispute the vibe.
Are you making Paul and Bradley Psychic Cafe t-shirts yet?
I want to now. No one can dispute.
You should.
Hey, well, you designed the thumbnail. How'd you fancy designing the t-shirt?
I will immediately.
See, I suppose actually, I'd be interested to know. So, how does your sort of more sketchy visualization like affect the art you produce?
I think because it's all scribbly shapes and angles and lines, it appears in my head. I mean, when I pick up a pen, it doesn't come out on the page exactly the same way, but I guess it looks in my head like something I would draw. If that makes sense.
Yeah, do you know what? The art. It felt like you've got a distinct art style when you try to remember memories. You've got minimalist art style.
Yeah.
Yeah. I find sometimes when I'm describing a scene, I have the tendency to go overboard because my mind produces such detail that I'm like if I want to describe like a machine or something, I know exactly what it looks like. I know what every button does. I know it's so clear to me. And I'm like, look, it kind of looks like a sort of and I'm not very good at like, I'm very good at talking endlessly, but I'm not very good at like conveying certain descriptions. I suppose really it's because there are images with such deep emotional resonance, with such, you know, real potency and power, that sometimes lose that when you try to translate them into something. Like, I've had some dreams where I'll tell you this story. I had a dream where I was visited by Steven Seagal. I'm not a fan of Steven Seagal, but he showed up on my door, and for some reason he couldn't remember any of the lines he was meant to be saying, even though they were like just him saying his own name. And so he had like a piece of paper as a script, and he knocked on the door. I opened it, and he was like, "Hey Paul, it's me, world famous actor." He looked at the piece of paper, Steven Seagal, and I just thought, and for some reason Steven Seagal was the funniest thing I'd ever heard in my life. Like, in the dream, I found it utterly hysterical. And I was laughing so hard. And then as I woke up, I was like, oh god, I'm gonna tell my parents about this one. This is an absolute banger. So I went over to tell my mum. I told her, and then I woke up again because that was another dream. And then I went out to tell her again, and I woke up, that was another dream, and on and on and on. I was going up and up and up through layers and layers and layers of dream, and it was getting harder and harder to remember Steven Seagal. But I was clinging on to it because I was like, this is so funny. Every time I said it, it made me laugh out loud. And I was like, man, this is going to be, when I wake up, I'm going to be a comedy legend. And then I finally did wake up. I opened the door to my bedroom. And I just went, Steven Seagal. And I got nothing. Of course I got nothing. It's crap.
I mean, that story is worthy of becoming a movie. In which you could probably cast Steven Seagal.
but I find it funny that that something so inane could have such deep emotional resonance.
Yeah.
Just trying to translate that to anything else is sort of impossible.
They say that dreams and nightmares are your brain working through the things that you refuse to confront in your waking life. So what the hell does that mean?
Man, I'm big on dream interpretation. I get a lot of my stories through dreams. I get a lot of my best art through dreams. But that one, I have no clue. I just can't. I couldn't. I mean, afterwards, I made like a Photoshop of Steven Seagal's head on a seagull because I was just like.
And then you sent it to our friends' group chat.
I sent it to everyone. Because I still, at some level, thought, this is funny, right? Like surely. I think it is.
I laughed.
Thank you for that. But yeah, yeah, dreams are another interesting topic. I feel like this is like a real nice laid back episode.
Yeah,
I'm liking this one. Yeah, I mean, I suppose. Yeah, I like what you said about the like dreams and that. I mean, how vivid are your dreams actually?
I don't really. I get dreams maybe like 3 times a year at most.
Seriously?
Yeah, I don't dream all that much. And when I do, they're almost always nightmares involving being chased or stranded somewhere. Either nightmares or just really boring scenarios. I had one dream recently where I was just I was at a school that I didn't recognize, and I was trying to shave in a classroom, but there was I had to do it quickly because students had started filing into the classroom.
No, Sam, that wasn't a dream. That was you in the morning trying to shave in my damn cafe.
Oh yeah, I remember now.
I did tell you to stop.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah, my dreams are. I think they're pretty vivid. After I wake up, they quickly start to go. I've been trying to keep a bit of a dream journal, for the rare occasion on which they do happen. but in as I'm waking up, I'm aware of how they felt like a reality.
Yeah. I mean, I find that the reality of a dream, it kind of I like what you were saying about it, you know, being a thing that you're working through.
I mean, dreams are still very mysterious. There's a lot of different explanations people have for them, but that's the one I've heard the most.
I mean, I think that there are many different types of dream. Like there's just the your brain sorting through random stuff that happened in the day, and then like sort of chucking out the stuff it doesn't need, which I think is probably the most common dream, in fairness. There's the dream where you're trying to go through an emotional like situation that you're having. Like very recently, I had a dream where I was in a school where I was just trying to meet up for Dungeons and Dragons, but then one of my old teachers, got involved, and she started turning it into a massive assignment and putting all the duties onto me. And I was like having to do all the paperwork and that, but then I didn't. The computer didn't work, and she was blaming me until eventually I just went, "Hang on a minute, I don't need to do this. I left school ages ago. I'm out of here." And they were like, "What are you doing, Paul?" And I was like, "What are you going to do? Put me in detention? Get out of here. I'm off."
And then she did.
Which, yeah, and then there's another far rarer kind of dream, which I feel like is almost a direct message, either from your subconscious or something above, depending on how you feel about the topic.
Yeah. That's yeah. Where do we go from here?
I don't know. Honestly, I think this this conversation's gone a bit off the rails, if I'm honest.
It has a bit.
Yeah.
I think my main takeaway about the aphantasia thing is that different people's brains work differently, and I think we do need to give it some more study, because it does influence people's lives very heavily.
I mean, yeah. I mean, that's the thing I find. The thing I find fascinating, like sort of infinitely so, is finding the ways that people's minds make associations and connections between things. I mean, I often say to like my dad, whose mind works very differently to mine, like I just wish you could see things the way that I see them, and you know, and also vice versa, because I want to know how it works. God, what must it be like to think of absolutely nothing? I've got a song playing in my head while I'm saying this.
Yeah, yeah, I get that.
and yeah, I suppose it's like Will Storr was saying in The Science of Storytelling. Everyone has their own internal world. Everyone has the universe looks entirely different through different people's eyes, and I think to treat everyone uniformly, I mean, obviously there's got to be like, you know, a standard. There's got to be something like that. But to just, for example, to treat children like tiny adults and get annoyed at them when they don't function the same. I mean, it not only does damage to the child's development, but it also, I think, kind of denies reality. It denies multiple realities.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people who just don't grasp that. Who don't grasp that different people are different.
Yeah.
That people are built different to the way that they're built. Yeah.
Yeah, and it creates the sort of mindset where the kind of facts don't care about your feelings mantra, which yeah, it's irritating because it's sterile. It's a kind of it's a complete. I mean, obviously there are some things which, no matter how much we dislike them, are factual, but I mean, apart from the fact that a lot of people just use that as an excuse to be arseholes, it's still.
Yeah. I've been listening to a few different like psychiatry and spirituality podcasts recently, and I'm probably gonna parrot and butcher some concepts right now.
That's
but
fine. I do that all the time.
There's a guy called Dr. K who I listen to sometimes, and I find a lot of what he has to say very, very interesting. Because he does a lot of therapy that incorporates elements of meditation and spirituality. And what was he saying the other day? He was talking about where existential dread comes from. And in the case of one particular person, one particular patient, their existential dread, once they'd tunneled down into certain facts about their life, about the fact that they're proud of being independent, of the fact that they never really they have a good relationship with their family, but they struggle to relate to their parents and family growing up. Once they tunneled down into all that stuff, they came to the conclusion that their feeling of self-reliance, but also anxiety regarding their future, came from a childhood sense of if I can't rely on the people who are supposed to take care of me to reciprocate the feelings that I have about things, then I need to rely on myself, and that's a lot of pressure to have at a very early age. And yeah,
I can relate. I can relate to that, honestly, because
yes, I think I can relate to that.
Yeah, I mean, because I've always been the weirdo in the class. like I mean, no matter where I went or what group of people, I was always slightly on the outskirts. Even people who thought like me. I mean, and it gets to the point where I feel almost a compulsion, like even like amongst like spiritual people, when they say things that I completely agree with, I'm still like, well, it's still a kind of reflexive pushing away, because a part of me wants to be part of a community more than anything, but another part of me feels, I would lose a part of myself there. I would that I actually work better being the lone weirdo on the corner, being the cryptid. And I suppose that's, it's stuff like that I find really, really fascinating, and I think kind of bears down to the root of the problem with a big T and P, because because we're pretending that there is a sort of uniform way for the mind to work, that there is a logic that isn't emotional. There is an emotional
Yeah.
logic, but there isn't we're trying to pretend that it's just pure logic to the way that we work, and we're creating these weird, bizarre rules and systems that are just so tangled up. It's a very not a very Taoist way to view the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Another thing that that Dr. K mentioned was that there are, I can't remember the Sanskrit words he used, but there are in some cultures that there are different concepts for knowledge and intelligence. There's a kind that we value very much here in the West, which is the kind that can be tangibly proved. It's very much what science is based on. And then there's a kind that has more to do with the self, with something that that can only be achieved through self-reflection. And there are some cultures that prize that kind of intelligence over the other kind, and it's they might have the right idea, knowing that there are so many different people in the world with so many different inner workings, with so many different minds. There's no way you can know everything. There's no way you can do all the research and obtain all the knowledge in the universe.
Exactly. And that's sorry.
Yeah. So no, go on ahead.
But that's the beautiful thing. That's the beautiful thing that you can't know it all. Imagine how boring life would be if you did. And the concept I find really fascinating is synergy, which is like the wisdom of broader systems. One ant on their own, I mean, it's not stupid, but it's a single ant. But a whole bunch of them network together with different tasks and different ambitions and that. Well, different. Yeah. Create a broader intelligence that no one unit could anticipate. I find that there, I think to myself, am I viewing it from this position? Am I viewing this issue from this position? Am I viewing it from that position? And you can really burn yourself out doing that if you're trying to make a point, if you're trying to make a work of art, or even if you're just trying to make like a public speech or anything really. Thinking about it from so many different angles can actually lead to you doing nothing at all. I think the wonderful thing is that that you don't know everything, I mean, I've got an ideology, right? Well, I've got a way I view the world, and it feels to me like it's it's just common sense, it feels to me that it's just that's how the world is. But I know on another level that it really isn't, that I might be right in some occasions, but on other times, the guy who I completely disagree with and kind of, that I really can't, I know some of my family members have very, very, very different ways of viewing the world that I do. And I just cannot get into their headspace sometimes. I try to, and I can on some occasions, but there are some times where I'm just like, you fundamentally view reality a different way than me. And sometimes my way of viewing things is what's necessary, and sometimes theirs is. And they can both be true, two completely contradictory things can be true at the same time, in different contexts, under different lights, with different circumstances, and that the truth, if there is such a thing, is so broad and all-encompassing that no one person can hold the entirety of it. And that's kind of beautiful, I feel.
And that's often where paralyzing anxiety and existential dread comes from the awareness of how different everybody is, and the attempt at trying to take every single little thing into consideration, at being like, oh yeah, this is what I believe, but I also have to be prepared for the eventuality, for the infinite number of eventualities that could occur if I'm wrong.
Yeah. And I think this is where I think there's a sort of faith that's got to come in when you're acting in the world in any capacity. There is a sort of faith that you've got to have that, okay, I don't know how I fit into the broad picture of things. I don't know whether I'm supposed to be inspire. I don't know whether I'm supposed to inspire other people to agree with me, or if I'm supposed to inspire someone to disagree with me and come up with a better theory or a better action. I don't know whether this is supposed to, do this or that or whatever. But I'll do it because in my gut, this is how I feel. And you just trust that it will fit in. Because I mean, you think about it, can you really do wrong in that way? Now, I want to stress it. This doesn't mean that anything goes. There are still some. There's still like some law. Well, no, some rules. Some. Don't go doing some. Don't go doing public indecency. Not like I do at Paul and Bradley. Don't go doing some war crimes like Sam does at Paul and Bradley Psychic Cafe. But at the same time, it's just, there is, if you're operating on what you feel within yourself, is right, then it's got to work.
I think that's why the knowledge of the self is type of intelligence is important. Maybe not. I don't know whether it's more important than the other kinds of intelligence, the scientific kinds.
I'd say they're on equal levels.
I'd say it's definitely more important than people gives it credit for, at the very least. I think because that's the path to, when you think about how you can best serve yourself in order to be the best self to serve the world. That's the path forward.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to describe it.
Yeah, and there was a thing I was going to say, which was going to be really clever and sort of pithy and really round this whole thing off, but I've forgotten it now. Hooray! We found the point of the podcast. Hooray! Well, my mouse has died now. But I think that should do it, unless you have more stuff to say.
No, that's buy Paul and Bradley's Psychic Cafe merch.
Buy Paul and Bradley's Psychic Cafe merch. You can't deny the vibe. T-shirts coming very soon.
Yes.
Yeah. That was Sam Cybichowski, everyone. What a talk. What a fantastic guy. His beard glows ever brighter by the day. If you want to check out Sam some more, then you can follow him on his YouTube channel, Sam Cyb Stories, link in the description. That's all for today. Have a good one.